what's up? New video. Obviously, you're watching it. I'm working on, I'm working on getting my way through some new vinyl that I've picked up since the last collection update. Or not update, the collection total. So, while I work my way through that, I'm going to continue doing these, but if you're wondering what we're listening to, it's actually going to be, in the next video, Twilight, Monument to Time End, Blake Judd project. Yeah, you guys already know who Blake Judd is. Knockmistium. Piece of shit, heroin addict, but makes good music. Anyway, getting into it. First up, we've got Carcass with Surgical Steel. Again, this is not something that I'm making known to anybody. This is not something that I'm introducing anybody to. If it is, then something's obviously wrong. You should really know Carcass. Not necessarily for this album, but at least for the bare minimum for their earlier work. Like Necroticism, Heartwork, Eureka Putrefaction, and I always forget what the second album is, but you really all should know this. This album in particular is probably one of my favorites ever, and I'm not afraid of admitting that there's a lot of nostalgic attachment to this. In my opinion, though, honestly, it's really good, just mellow death. Thrasher's Abattoir, non-compliance to ASTM F899-12 standard, the Granulating Dark Satanic Mills, Mount of Execution. These are all solid mellow death songs, and like I said before, like, I'm not super huge into mellow death anymore. I really haven't been since like 2014, 2015, but this shit is really good, in my opinion. I know a lot of people hopped on the bandwagon just because it had Carcass attached to it, but when I heard it for the first time, I had no previous attachment to Carcass. I didn't know who they were. I just heard this and I was like, yeah, this is really fucking good. Anyway, should check it out if you haven't for some reason. This is Carcass with Surgical Steel. Next up, we've got Cardiac Arrest with Vortex of Violence. This one was a gift from my uncle, and again, solid shit. This is really just kind of run-of-the-mill death metal, but there's a lot of parts in here that are super like catchy, kind of not knuckle-dragging caveman riffs, but something that you can just kind of nod your head. You kind of find yourself nodding your head along to, really enjoying the fucking groove of it. The riffs on here are solid. Vocals are just standard death metal fare. Portal of the Damned, pretty good. Conjured Beings and Primitive Lunacy are both solid. Depths of Despair, Subject to Torture, really fucking good. This is their 2012 release through Ibex Moon Records. There's an artwork all over this thing. I really do like that image right there. It's like Leatherface, but not quite. But yeah, this is something you guys should all be familiar with. I don't necessarily know how well known that this band is, but if you aren't familiar with Cardiac Arrest, you should be. Specifically this album, I haven't listened to anything else by them, but this album is solid through and through. So yeah, that is Cardiac Arrest with Vortex of Violence. Next up, we've got the Carnifex demo. The 06 Carnifex demo through Enclave Records. Still one of my favorite things that I own. This one, it just means a fuck ton to me, because I got it from someone super special that I'm really grateful to know and be kind of friends with. This is really fucking good. Yeah, this is the OG version of My Heart in Atrophy, before it was on Dead in My Arms. The other songs in here, though, Redemption, Regret, and Event of the Fallen, super solid shit. There's really not a whole hell of a lot to show off here. You can see here, actually, I'm pretty sure this is the first release through Enclave Records. And I got it signed by everybody who was in Carnifex at the time of me receiving this. So Jordan, Scott, Corey, Fred, and Sean. Even though Corey, Jordan, and Fred weren't in the band at this time, to me that is like the ultimate lineup of Carnifex, because we got 3 badass back-to-back albums from them out of that lineup, so that's all that matters to me. But yeah, getting this one in the sample is going to be a bit weird, but it's going to be worth it. You guys should really try and find this somewhere. Don't pay the fucking $400 that some retard on Discogs ended up spending for this. It's not worth that much even to me, but it's worth checking out if you can find it somewhere. This is Carnifex with Carnifex. Next up, we've got Carnifex with Dead in My Arms. And be prepared, like I said in the last video, this one has every single release that Carnifex has ever done. So, next one I get the feeling you guys are going to like a little bit more, at least, hopefully. Not that I fucking care, I do this for a hobby, but anyway, yeah, Carnifex Dead in My Arms, their first album from 07. Same year that The Cleansing came out, same year that The Somatic Defilement came out. It was like the boom of MySpace deathcore, and Jesus Christ, I wish I would have known about shit like this back in the day, because that would have been fucking great. But yeah, this is solid shit. A lot of people call it Suicide Silence Worship, but this came out same fucking year as The Cleansing, so that's stupid as hell. There's the inside there, signed by, again, everybody in the band as of 2019, or from, signed by everybody in the band from the Die Without Hope World War X lineup. And actually, I've got a funny little story about this mark right here, and why that guy's face is crossed out. I was having Sean sign it at the Straight Outta Hell tour with Whitechapel, Oceano, Suicide Silence, and Carnifex, and he was telling me, as he was signing it, actually, it's like, this guy right here scribbles it out. It's like, fuck this guy. We just wanted to be thought we had to be a 5-piece band, so that's the whole reason. Like, he didn't write anything, he just played live shows, that's it. And then he scribbled out his face there too, so that was highly entertaining. But yeah, this is, again, solid, just flat out deathcore. There's really no special twist this time around. There's no, like, influences from other genres. But it's still good shit, fucking insanely brutal, fucked up lyrics. Slit Wrist Savior, and Light in My Face, obviously everybody knows, but other two, Winter and Remorse, Dead in My Eyes, These Thoughts Become Cages are all fucking solid songs too. And quite frankly, you guys should really go fucking listen to this if you haven't. Yeah, that's Carnifex with Dead in My Arms. And next up, we've got Carnifex with The Diseased and The Poisoned. And for the record, so I don't keep saying this with every album that's coming up, all of my Carnifex CDs are signed by the Die Without Hope to World War X era lineup of Carnifex. So yeah, Carnifex, Diseased and The Poisoned, their sophomore album from... So this is, I kind of feel like, the most forgotten about Carnifex album, because it came before Hell Chose Me. So I feel like a lot of people just don't give this one the attention that it deserves. Again, this is more straight up, no bullshit, deathcore, no strings attached to any other musical genre, really. This one kind of dabbles just a hair more into death metal, but it's just more straight up deathcore. In Kolsch with Filth and Faith, Innocence Died, Screaming, The Disease and the Poison, Aortic Dissection. Again, just solid shit the whole way through, in my opinion. nothing to sneeze at, but in my opinion, this fucking album is grossly overlooked. It really deserves some more attention from Carnifex fans. And hey, if you haven't heard this before, and you're just looking for some straight up nasty 08 deathcore back from heyday, this is the place to fucking look. This is Carnifex with The Diseased and The Poisoned. Next up, we've got Carnifex with Hell Chose Me. Signed, of course. This is their 2010 release that everybody fucking knows. Because it's got so many fucking classic, great fucking Carnifex songs on it. They started dabbling a little bit more with black metal here, but they went basically kind of straight death metal, or at least it borders on death metal. The riffs are a lot more death metal than they are just straight deathcore. It's a lot less just knuckle dragging deathcore shit. Through Victory Records, I really don't feel like I need to go into a whole hell of a lot of detail. Most people, if not all deathcore fans who know Carnifex, should know this album for good reason. Solid shit the whole way through, good listen, and you should very much so know that Entombed Monarch is a really good song that is not on the main roster, I guess, of the main songs that people know from this album. Heartless is really fucking good too. The Liar's Funeral and Genocide Initiative are all solid, and I don't think it's on this CD. I know it's on the vinyl version that I have, but this also has a cover of Slayer's Angel with Death, which in my opinion is leagues better than the original. But yeah, you should all know this. You should all listen to it. If you don't know it, even if you don't like deathcore, I recommend you give it a shot at least. This is Carnifex with Hell Chose Me. Next, we've got Carnifex with Until I Feel Nothing. And don't worry, there's only 3 more left. Like I said in the last 2 videos, I'm pretty sure, some of these are going to have just straight through discographies. But yeah, Until I Feel Nothing. This is, again, I feel like an unfairly forgotten about album from Carnifex fans and deathcore fans and death metal fans. This one leaned a teensy bit heavier into the black metal, but this one basically went full death metal with deathcore influences. It's not bad by any stretch, and you should really, really all know this. There's a lot of classic fucking songs on here that people should know, Until I Feel Nothing, Names Mean Nothing, Dead But Dreaming, Wretched Entropy, and Curse My Name are also really, really fucking good. This is their 2011 release through, again, Victory Records. Same thing as, I'm pretty sure, The Diseased and The Poisoned and Hell Chose Me. I forget where I was going exactly, but 2011 through Victory Records. I'm pretty sure the same as Diseased and The Poisoned and Hell Chose Me. I'm not too sure about Dead in My Arms. Again, it's just really an album that everybody should be familiar with, especially if you're into deathcore or you're a fan of Carnifex. This is, I feel, is an unfairly overlooked album. I will say this is probably the weakest of all of their music, but that is not to be overlooked because Carnifex hasn't made a bad album yet. Yeah, check it out if you fucking haven't for some reason. This is Carnifex with Until I Feel Nothing. Next, we've got the contender for my second favorite album of all time. Probably, if not my first album of all time. Honestly flops between this and The Satanist consistently. But Carnifex, Die Without Hope. This came out when I was first discovering what music was beyond the confines of Demon Hunter, As I Lay Dying, Haste the Day, Shine Down, Alter Bridge, shit like that that's really safe, like dad rock and metalcore and shit like that. This came out, like I said, at a very tender time in my life when I was very moldable, but that does not take away from the validity of the music. This is a beautiful little experiment of what happens when deathcore leans really heavily into black metal and also has the death metal influences. This is hands down their best release. Without question, the best thing that they've ever done thus far. This is also signed twice. This one, I'm pretty sure, by Corey, Sean, and Fred. And this one signed by everybody. Yeah, like I said, solid shit. It's a beautiful little thing. A little example of what happens when deathcore and black metal meet. It's a wonderful fucking thing. People who don't normally like deathcore like this album. People who don't normally fuck with black metal like this album. It's, for the most part, people tend to agree that this is their favorite of their output. If not this, then hell chose me. But yeah, I really am not introducing anybody to anything new with this, or Carnifex in general, really. You should all know this. Die Without Hope, Hatred and Slaughter, Dragged into the Grave, Dark Days. Where the Light Dies is probably my favorite Carnifex song, period. That leans the most heavily into black metal, and it works beautifully. You guys should all know this. You should all check it out if you haven't. This is Carnifex with Die Without Hope. And for the record, to clear it up, you should obviously know, but 2014 released through Nuclear Blast. That came after their hiatus that happened after Until I Feel Nothing. And this is their 2016 release through Nuclear Blast, Slow Death. This is kind of like a continuation almost of Die Without Hope, but this one goes a bit heavier into the deathcore side of things again. But the riffing on here is super fucking solid. Like I said, I go through all of this music while I'm at work or just exercising or shit like that, so I can, talk about this from a fresh perspective. And having listened to this again, I was at work and I just had a speaker behind me, like, held up on my hood, because the car I was in didn't have any aux cord or anything like that. The riffing on here is a fuck ton better than I remember. And that's saying quite a bit, because I already thought that this is a really fucking great follow-up to Die Without Hope. But this is... The riffing of some of these songs is... Jordan did a fucking fantastic job through and through. Pale Ghost, Life Fades to a Funeral is a solid little interlude. Countess of the Crescent Moon, Black Candles Burning... Songs that you should know that aren't the main roster of shit. Like shit that they released for their singles. Solid album through and through, signed by everybody. You guys should all check it out if you haven't. This is still a solid release. It's no Die Without Hope, but it's nothing to sneeze at. Slow Death. And so, with the release of Slow Death, that also came out in 2016, which is a very passionate time in my life. Very tender, very nostalgic for me. A lot of shit happened in that year. And then this is their 2019 release, World War X. Actually wearing the hat for it right now. This came out 3 years after Slow Death. I was eagerly awaiting every fucking second of it, obviously. But this is a decent album all on its own. It doesn't feel like a follow-up to any of the albums prior. It feels kind of like its own thing. The riffing on here is fucking great, too. Jordan Lockery, I'm so beyond sad to see that he left Carnifex. But Godspeed to him and whatever the hell he does. Whatever band he ends up with is going to end up doing some great shit, musically. This is really fucking good. This one definitely leans more heavily into death metal than black metal, which is not a bad thing at all because they're really great death metal writers too. Their influences really show. Yeah, signed by everybody. Here's the inside. Visions of the End. This Infernal Darkness has some of my favorite Carnifex lyrics. Period. Words became blades as they slipped through the flesh in my throat is just cool as fuck. I feel like this came out at a very good time in my life. Not tender, not nostalgic. I understand it was just last year, but there wasn't nearly as much hype for this as there was for me for Slow Death. Because I listened to Die Without Hope a year after it came out, and then I was eagerly awaiting anything that would come afterwards. But Slow Death is better than I remember it being, which is not a negative thing to say at all. I love Slow Death. But this, I feel like I've definitely matured a fuck ton since Slow Death came out. There wasn't as much hype, but this is still a fucking really solid album. Like I said, This Infernal Darkness, Visions of the End, Eyes of the Executioner, Brushed by the Wings of Demons in particular is a really, really just great fucking song through and through. You guys should all know this. You should all love it. This is Carnifex with World War X. Next up, we've got Cattle Decapitation with Monolith of Inhumanity. Next two albums I'm definitely not introducing anybody to. You all know Cattle Decapitation. You should all fucking know and love this album. This, for a lot of people, was the beginning of the end of Cattle Decapitation, but a lot of people still enjoyed it because it was sort of a fresh breath of air. This is a lot different than anything they had done in the past. The Harvest for Humanure, Homivore, shit like that. This is very different, but it was a good different. It wasn't death grind, but it wasn't straight up melodic death metal. This is still brutal. This is still disgusting, nasty fucking death metal. Also signed by Travis and Josh, the guitarist for Cattle Decapitation. I don't quite know for how many albums, but he's been the guitarist for a fair bit, if I remember correctly. 2012 release through Metal Blade. Again, I'm not introducing anybody to anything new with this. You should all know this. You should all love it. It's a good fucking album through and through. Check it out. If you don't know it, this is Cattle Decapitation with Monolith of Inhumanity. Next, we've got Cattle Decapitation with the Anthropocene Extinction. This came out in 2015, again through Metal Blade, but this is another one of those situations where it came out at a very tender, moldable time in my life. I was hyped as fuck for this album, because I had never heard anything like Travis Ryan's like Green Goblin ass singing. So hearing that they were going to do more of this on, just based off of the single through Manufactured Extinct, I was over the moon for this. And again, signed by Travis and Josh. But this is better than I remember it being. Again, like with Slow Death, this is not quite the death of the band that everybody made it out to be. This is 110% Monolith of Inhumanity Part 2, which is not necessarily a bad thing. The only thing that I wish is that it wasn't Monolith of Inhumanity Part 2. It's not like anybody was really asking for a part 2 of this, except for stupid fanboys who all they want to hear is Travis Ryan screaming like the Green Goblin. But it's not bad. It's still solid death metal. I understand that the clean singing for a lot of older Cattle Decapitation fans can really piss them off, and I understand why. but it's for the most part a really solid listen. The Prophets of Loss, Crocodile Rot is a really nasty, gory song. Mammals in Babylon, Pacific Rim too. All solid shit through and through. You guys should really honestly check it out if you haven't. This is Cattle Decapitation with the Anthropocene Extinction. Next, we've got Cheech with Keep Your Pimp Hand Strong. Fucking love the title of this album. This is really solid hardcore. I feel comfortable in calling this hardcore, not punk. This is solid through and through. I just got done listening to this for like the third time today within the last week. That's how good this fucking is. It's super angry, pissed off, and just fun all the way through. The song titles are fucking hilarious too. Words of Cheech, Emo Wigger Shot in the Face, Pint of the Black Stuff, Tolerance to Injustice, Bloody Bean. This is their 2004 release through Not Gonna Say Records, and I believe this is actually my uncle's label, if I'm remembering that correctly. But yeah, I really hope I am introducing to something new to somebody here, because this is something that you guys should really all hear. This is along the lines of like sheer terror, like super jaded, angry, pissed off sounding songs that are just really fun to fucking listen to through the production, which is all you really need in hardcore, honestly. Just fun fucking music. But yeah, check it out. If for some reason you haven't, you really owe yourselves a favor. This is Cheech with Keep Your Pimp Hand Strong. Next, we've got Chevelle with This Type of Thinking Could Do Us In, my bad. This is their 04 release through Sony BMG. I don't know a whole hell of a lot about the history of this release or the history of this band. I just really know that I fucking really like Chevelle. They've got a decently unique sound in the realm of hard rock that kind of sets them apart for me. Same thing for like Shinedown or Alter Bridge. Just decent shit all the way through. This kind of borders a little bit on grunge as far as riffs go, but as far as hard rock goes, I've definitely heard a lot more egregious things within the last 48 hours than this. This is just another one of those bands that I really like bond with and connect with my dad. We both really enjoy Chevelle, and it really always ends up getting a conversation going between the two of us whenever we're talking about it. I have a lot of emotional attachment to Chevelle, but I do genuinely think that this is decent music. Get Some, Another Know-It-All, Tug of War, all solid shit. A little bit screamy on them. Obviously, I'm hoping that you don't mind that. But I recommend you guys check this out if for some reason that you haven't. It's Chevelle with This Type of Thinking Could Do Us In. Next and last is Children of Bodom with I Worship Chaos. 2015 released the Nuclear Blast. I got this at FYE for like $5 fucking. So I figured, why not? I've heard some Children of Bodom songs before in the past that I really enjoyed. And you know what? This isn't too terrible. I know everybody said they kind of fell off after, I think, Bloodlust. This has the making of DVD in here. I haven't watched it. Don't really care to, if I'm being completely honest. Like I said, it's just solid shit. There's nothing really to write home about, but at the same time, it's nothing to like actively complain about. I think it's a decent album. Gets a little bit boring at times, so I had to splice it up with some other music. But a couple songs off of here are pretty solid, I feel like. Prayer for the Afflicted, I Worship Chaos, Shins, Mistress of Taboo are all pretty solid. Decent Mellow Death. I'm not introducing anybody to anything new with fucking Children of Bodom. They're probably one of the best known melodeath bands, and for good reason. They've got some really decent, catchy music. But yeah, check it out if you haven't. Children of Bodom, I Worship Chaos. And that's it for this video. This is going to be the new structure, one shelf of CDs at a time, which is going to be a fucking nightmare for me because that's a decent amount of music to edit in, and it's also, this video alone is already 38 minutes at time of recording before editing. So yeah, it's going to be a fuck ton of fun to edit these, but this is how about the average length, what this ends up coming out to is the average length of what these videos are going to be. Maybe a little bit shorter now that I'm not gawking about one of my favorite bands of all time. Hopefully you guys are enjoying it. If not, whatever. If you are, cool. But yeah, I'm going to take off. I've got Stu waiting for me in the room, and deuces.